So 2,000 kilometers now worth of riding on this bike, and by the time I upload this video and you get to watch it, I probably would have done close to 2,500 to 3,000 kilometers of riding. And in Australia at the moment it's winter, and I've been riding this bike a lot in winter. Firstly because, well, it's got disc brakes, and secondly because I found it's a great performing bike. Okay, so now why are we talking about a non-big name brand bike which have just released their 2018-19 range? In fact, you may not have even heard of Yoeleo before, or maybe you have because they're getting a great reputation worldwide for quality. Okay, many reasons that this bike rivals all those other name brands. First of all is price. You won't get anywhere near the value for money price that these bikes represent. Secondly is quality. Yoeleo started off making wheels a long time ago and have got a great reputation for good quality wheels for an excellent price. Then they branched out into some components like seat post, handlebars and bits and pieces, and then of course now they've got frames so they can do the whole bike now. Third reason is worldwide serious athletes are now riding Yoeleo products, particularly their wheels and their frames. So not only the serious triathletes and road racers, but also us budding enthusiasts, thousands worldwide are finding Yoeleo products excellent and reliable. Now the last reason, which is unusual, which I talked about in the first video, and is unlike any other of the brand names to the extent that Yoeleo does, is customization. Yoeleo will customize the bike how you want before they send it to you. So what seat do you want? What handlebars do you want? What sort of wheels do you want? How do you want, etc, etc, etc. They'll do all that before they send it to you. So you only pay for what you want. So now, how does it perform? How do we find this bike? Let's find out. Now climbing, there's basically two sorts of climbing when the incline is not so steep. So you sit on your saddle and twiddle away, preferably at a higher cadence. And I found no problem whatsoever, particularly with this adjustment here. Here you've got extra back and forward adjustment, fore and aft, on this seat post, which is unique to this Yoeleo frame. So you go way over your crank if you want to for triathlons, and way back if you want to have that sort of comfort in an easier angle. Anyhow, sitting on your seat, climbing up a hill, this rear triangle here from your pedals, particularly your power transfer, I can't fault it. No problem whatsoever, stiff as anything, really good, but at the same time not fatiguing. Sometimes you feel fatigued in your ankles, your knees, or even the sole of your foot. Not at all. Now with your front, you're of course off your saddle, and you're dancing up with your hands on your hoods, and usually what you want is you can feel a little bit of difference. If you've got a slack, sloppy or very light frame, you feel a little bit of flex. You're not quite in control of where the front wheel's going, the forks. No problem here. Super bulky stiffened area here, and I guess because of the disc brakes as well, they've stiffened up the forks, as all bikes will be doing with disc brakes. So it just felt like my hands were attached to the axle almost. No problem whatsoever. Tracking beautifully up the hill, even on those really steep bits. We got some 23 to 27% climbs, so no problem hill climbing. So you've just come uphill, and now where do you normally go? Downhill. So how did this perform going downhill, particularly at speed around the corners? Now there's two things: stability and predictability. Stability, don't need to even talk about that. No speed wobbles, nothing like that. We do probably 88 to 90 k's an hour at the most. We're getting too old to do any faster, so won't even need to talk about that. Predictability. Now that means in the back of your mind, in your subconscious, when you come up to a corner, you know how this machine is going to perform, how it's going to pull you around the corner. That's important because, especially with your mates and you're pushing it a bit, you want to make it around safely, but at the same time it's a bit of friendly banter there, and so you're on the edge of, with your speed, too fast, you're going to go off, or too slow, well then you're too slow. So now I've had some bikes, and you probably have too, where you feel like it's pulling out, it's going to keep going out, or worse still, it wants to come in, fall in. That's no good. Just get rid of that bike. And the other thing is you don't want to be stuck in a trajectory where you're going around a corner and it's not, you just you feel like you just have to take that arc. You can't make any changes other than putting on your brakes. This one I found was up there with the best that I've ridden, where you can make mid-corner trajectory changes. So you come up to a corner and you've got your fingers near the brakes. So what you do is you throw your head in and your knee in, and it makes that arc a little bit tighter, and so you can make it around that corner at the speed, and it makes it no problem, nice and safe. Now I found that really good, so I'm going to be testing that out a little bit more. No problem with that, so feeling really safe there. Now comfort. Comfort's important because if you're not comfortable, you're getting fatigued, and fatiguing means less efficiency. Now I'm going to tell you, this is up there with the best road bikes I've ridden for comfort. Now most of my life I've ridden steel bikes, and a lot of them are extremely comfortable as well. A lot of them are awful as well, but some of them were very, very good. In the last 10 years I've been riding carbon bikes, and this has to be up there with pretty much the top 3 I've ever ridden. Now here I'm going to compare it with the Canyon Air Road CFS LX. This is exactly the same size, disc brakes, the whole lot. Now I would prefer to ride on long distance this one. Anything over 80 k's, definitely this bike. Now if I'm in for a shorter ride, fast ride with the guys, then I'd probably go for this, but I certainly would not say no to that either. So comfort wise, absolutely excellent. Now in order for a bike to be a good sprint bike, it needs to be able to transfer the power very efficiently from your cranks to your rear wheels, as much power as you can get. In order to do that, you have a strong stiff frame, particularly the rear triangle here and from here to here as well. Now the way they do that is they beef up the frame a bit, add a bit more material, and you get a stronger frame. But when you add more material, you're adding more weight to your frame. And that's why you don't see a good sprinting frame and a good hill climbing frame all in the one package. It just doesn't happen. So you get separate items, a hill climbing frame, or you have a stronger sprint frame. So now how did it go? Excellent. Now I showed you in the previous video with this unboxing how I put in a big chainring and a smaller cog at the back, and you see if there's any deflection. Usually the chain will hit your front derailleur, either the outer or the inner cage, and it's almost non-existent. Put the power down and it was excellent, no rubbing whatsoever. So this part here, very, very strong, and the front area of course no problem, because being disc as well has to be beefed up, and this huge big head tube here, nice and big, and this big tube here, the down tube, nice and solid. So I found the whole thing really, really strong. Now to compare it to the other bikes, for instance the Canyon, well, it's not quite as snappy as the Canyon. The Canyon will kick no problem from the time you take off to the line. This thing is just fractionally behind that, but better than the Orbeas. The Orbeas are a great all-rounder, but they're not quite as snappy. There's a fraction bit of lag there when you go to take off. But this thing will sort of slot in between. So for me, and for most of us, it's an excellent bike for sprinting, extremely strong. Now since we're talking about an aero bike or an aero frame, we might as well touch on aerodynamics briefly. And don't imagine that any bike, no matter what they claim, is going to zoom you past your mates at an unprecedented speed downhill like you've never done before, because it ain't going to happen. Aerodynamics is about marginal gains. Well, let's have a look at what they've done as far as aerodynamics are concerned anyhow with this frame. A lot of the new bikes coming out, the top of the range ones, have got what's called truncated tubing. What that means is it's got an aero round shape at the front, quite large, and then all of a sudden at the back they've truncated or made it square or chopped it off. And that's definitely the case here. We've got it on the front here, it's round, and then it comes to a truncation here at the back, it's just flat. Same on the down tube here, it's round, and then it becomes flat on this edge here. And the same here over the wheel, it's round, although even though you've got your water bottle cage, but it's flat, and that forms over the back wheel as well. Now that's those truncated tubes. Then you've also got the airfoil effect, which is like an aircraft wing. Now the wing is larger at the front, then it tapers off at the back. Now they've got that on the fork. It's quite round and fat at the front, and it tapers off to a narrow back edge. And then you've also got it on the seat post here, large at the front and narrows off the back. You've also got it here as well. So pretty much every tube, of course you don't have to worry about that one so much, has got some design, aerodynamic design there. The only ones that haven't, your rear stays of course, but by the time you get back here with your legs moving and everything, you've got a lot of turbulence happening anyhow. So they've gone more over for the strength here, which is really good. Even so, they've still got the flat edges on these rear stays here, the down stays there, and the chain stays are pretty much normal, just nice and thick and strong. Some additional aero features of this bike are the seat post clamp. You can't see it, can you? That's because it's hidden away, nicely recessed in the top tube, and it makes it nice and flush. Now I put a white mark on the seat post here. When I first got the bike, put some carbon paste, as you do, in the seat post and the internal, just to make sure it wasn't going to move. And all the time I've had it, it hasn't budged. So nice design of that seat post clamp. Now we've got the under bottom bracket gear cable guides. It's recessed inside the shell of the bottom bracket, so nice and aerodynamic there. The cable routing in the frame, the only cables you'll see, this rear one here, unless of course you've got electronic, in which case you'll probably have a little bit anyway. The rear brake here, the hydraulic cable coming out about halfway along the rear stay going to the caliper. The front gear inner cable is nicely tucked away, exits around the bottom bracket and comes in. It's tucked in behind the seat tube here, so that's nice and hidden too. Now where the gear cable goes in here on this part of the frame, it's the same on the front gear cable on the other side, as well as of course the rear brake caliper enter there. Now the front brake cable, hydraulic hose I should say, goes in near the crown of the fork and exits halfway. Pretty much standard on most disc brake forks on the road now. So that's that. Now we've got a nice headset. I like this because not only does the paintwork match up nicely, which I've done, the headset here, I've seen some really nice bikes with some really bad gaps. So they've done a really nice job here because there's, honestly, I can only just, if I get the right angle, see a teeny bit of light through there. So there's probably 1 millimeter or less gap. So they've done really well there. Now the other things you can do aerodynamic, of course, is with through axles. You can now get the axles with the removable handles, which I've done a video on and showed you, and I have on this. I've got no handles on there, so no sticking out bits. So that's nice and aerodynamic there. The other thing you do, if you want to go even more aerodynamic, of course, then you can go aero water bottle cages, aero handlebars and headstem cockpit if you want, and the list goes on. But anyhow, I just sort of point out those features, and I think they're really good, nicely done features too. Now with wheels, first of all I mentioned, in case you didn't know, all disc brake wheels will not have radial spoking. So unlike with our caliper brake bikes where you can have your front wheel radial spoked and your non-drive side radial spoke on the rear, so that you save a little bit of weight and a little bit more aerodynamic. Well, no, sorry, current technology, you have to have crossed spokes. That's because the braking forces are a little bit different. They happen from the hub outwards instead of just at the brake rim. So we won't go into that bit, but crossed spokes at the moment on all our disc brake bikes. Now with these Yoeleo wheels, the spoke tension is really, really tight. Excellent. Look, they haven't lost tension. I've got 3 sets of Yoeleo wheels now, 2 sets for my caliper brakes and 1 set of disc brake wheels, and they're just very hard to pick anything wrong with them. So Yoeleo really do know how to make wheels last a long time as well. Now the other good thing about disc brakes is you don't have a braking track on your rim anymore, so you don't have to worry about wearing out your rims. Yay! Now lateral strength, these are full carbon rims, and laterally, that's side to side, they're very, very strong. Now that's mostly due to spoke tension. Now here's a little help. If you're a 70 kilogram rider or more in weight, go for Pilar spokes. We've got quite a few guys in our bunch, and they all insisted they wanted to go Sapum. And one guy's even got Yoeleo wheels, and he loves his wheels, but he went for the Sapum spokes, and he weighs around about 76 kilogram. And even though I did recommend him have Pilar spokes, he had to go the Sapum because he wanted lightweight wheels. Fair enough. And you know what? Him and the other 2 guys are complaining when you grab your frame that laterally their wheels are moving. You can see it all side to side, and one of them is touching the brake pads. You can move it to the brake pads. So Sapum make a strong spoke for its weight, so it makes a really lightweight wheel, but overall it's not really a strong wheel. So Pilar, these are the thinner of the Pilar Aero blade spokes on here, and they are plenty strong enough. And another set of wheels I've got even thicker Pilar spokes. Now they might be a little bit heavier, but boy, they're bomb-proof. So just a little bit of a help there. If you're over 70 kilogram, and you won't be disappointed, go for Pilar spokes in your wheels. Now with the rotor size, this bike has 140s front and rear, and you have to have 140 on the rear because of the caliper mount to the frame. But the front fork, you can have either 140 or 160. Now I've got 160s on my Canyon, and I thought maybe this wouldn't be as strong as the Canyon, or the modulation might feel different. Not at all. And I've read many people on forums and that say it's the same, whether they're 160s or 140, they can't feel any difference. Now it's interesting to note also that the new Trek Madone has only got 140s as well. So hopefully the industry will come to a standard rotor size that will just make it a lot easier in the future. And one of the big questions is, what size tyres can you fit on this frame or this bike? Well, the bike came with 25C tyres, but does it take 28C? Seems the trend is going towards wider tyres now. Well, I've just fitted a new Vittoria Zafiro, is it Zafiro Pro 28C tyre on the back. And as you can see, there's plenty of clearance between the seat stays, the rear stays, chain stays there, and even the seat tube here. Plenty of room, no problems using a 28C. And this is 25C tyre on the front. As you can see, plenty of clearance, no problems fitting 28s on there. And just to show you also, the wheel drops out just as easy with the 28C tyre on. Now over to the front and rear derailleur. They've been redesigned by Shimano. The rear one is a little bit faster in action, a bit smoother than the old one. Now the front one's where you'll notice a difference. The front one has been completely redesigned. It's a lot smoother. It almost feels like it's electronic changing. It's that good. So smoother and more accurate as well. Now it's probably because of the cable design, the way the cable comes up. It's different, completely different. Wraps around and is anchored behind. Completely different than all the derailleurs that the Shimano have made before. And also it's got little plastic inserts. If you look carefully on the outer and the inner cage, there's some specially shaped plastic inserts that guide your chain up and down. So that helps it transition up and down a lot quicker, more accurate, and definitely a lot smoother. Who knows how long those little plastic bits are going to last, because your chain traditionally has rubbed on the metal cage itself, and you could hear it rattle, rattle. But of course this is now on plastic, so it's a lot smoother. So anyhow, Shimano have done a really good job there. The performance is remarkably improved on the front derailleur. So we've got the Shimano Ultegra R8000 group set with disc brakes and of course hydraulic lines. And with the hydraulic lines comes your hydraulics in your lever up here. Now I know they have to compact a lot inside the lever, including your hydraulic cylinder and all that, and very good job they do of putting the gears inside their STI system as well as the hydraulics. But nevertheless, I do find, personally I find, maybe you don't, is the lever hood, this bit here, the front section is too big. So when you're particularly climbing off your saddle, your wrist is stuck in that one position, the most common position you have, but nevertheless you can't move your hand anywhere else. So I just felt that I was stuck in there. I thought, oh, this is, it's not really hurting my wrist yet, but I don't want to be stuck in this one position, especially if you're climbing 2Ks up a hill off your saddle or something like that. So I found that as a little bit restrictive there because of the bulkiness. No doubt they'll come down in size. Shimano, well, all companies, but particularly the Japanese, know how to compact things down, and eventually over time, over the years go past, they'll get smaller. The other thing is the lever hoods. They're fine except for a little flappy bit on the outside, both levers on both sides. Little flappy bit there, it's annoying, and it's definitely not aerodynamic, but you think they'll be able to stick that down better. Now the other thing I do have a gripe about, again with the levers, is they rattle, and it sounds like something's loose inside, like a loose nut or a bolt rattling around, or a washer or something, particularly when you take one hand off your handlebar, and say you take a drink out of your water bottle and you're on a rough road, one hand, and you can hear it, and both levers rattle. So I'm not sure what it is. I thought it was something loose in the handlebars at first. Then I realised it's on both sides. I pulled out the plugs, nothing in there. The plugs were fine as well. So it's definitely the levers rattling around. Now, is it unique? Maybe I've got just the problem. If you've got the same group set, have you got the same problem? Rattling levers, both levers? It's just annoying, that's all. The only gripe I've really got with the front derailleur, because of its new design, it's a bit bulkier. So when you look at it, it's sticking out a bit more. And if you look front on, well, it's a little bit less aerodynamic. And if we're talking about aerodynamics, well, may as well. We're splitting hairs again though. Another feature again with the front derailleur is the cable tension alignment. Remember, it used to have an inline adjuster, barrel adjuster up the front. So if you're riding along and something's not quite right, you can adjust it while you're riding along. You can't do it anymore. It's gone. So on the front derailleur now, there's a 2mm little grub screw that you need to adjust, and that adjusts the tension and alignment of your front derailleur, so you get it just right and then you leave it alone. Now, I just mentioned the cockpit up the front. I always go for a separate bar and stem, and there's a good reason for that. Is when you get a new bike, no matter how close you try and get it to the same size and the same geometry as your previous road bikes, they never feel the same, do they? 99% of the time they're going to be different. So you can make little tweaks. You can do your saddle height and fore and aft, of course, but also on your cockpit. So if you're not 110% sure about your comfort and shape on the cockpit, do not go for one of these integrated bar and stem bits. They might look good, they might be more aerodynamic, I don't know, and might be lighter, but you'll find even the pros are going back to the separate bar and stem because you can make small tweaks. So for instance, the length of your stem, the angle of your stem, the shape of the bars, the depth of the drop, and even the width of the bars, and of course the angle, the tilt in the stem itself. So that gives you your ultimate comfort on your bike, tweaking that, and comfort really is so important on your bike. And I've gone for look pedals instead of Shimano pedals because all my other road bikes have got look pedals on, and all my shoes, road shoes, have got look cleats as well. So rather than pay a lot of money, change it all over to Shimano, I might as well just stick to look. Simple thing, and I have no problems with look pedals. If you're wondering what that is, that's my GoPro mount on the back of the seat, so I can see all the guys suffering behind me. Not just kidding. So let's have a close look at the frame itself now. As mentioned before, with the cable routing, very neat and tidy, well done. No sharp corners for the cables to bend around to interfere with their function. The cable routing inside, no rattling whatsoever, no matter how many rough bumps you go over. The cables at the front, whatever bike you buy, are going to come a little bit longer because when they transport the bike in the box, your handlebars are down here, so you don't want any kinks in your cables, any sharp bends. So they're usually a little bit longer when you buy your bike, and it's up to you if you want to cut them a bit shorter or not. So I've left these longer because I'm going to do a video later on how to shorten your hydraulic cables. So that's all to do with the routing of the cables now. The paintwork is a matte clear over the whole lot, and it's over your decals as well, so you can't scratch your decals, and that includes the wheels as well. Now where it's black, the black bits, that's raw carbon, just the clear over the carbon, and you can see at different angles the unidirectional sheeting, the way it's made, and that's quite fascinating. Different angles, you can see it. So if you like that effect, it's a nice raw effect. And it just shows you that they're not hiding anything either. If they're hiding the way it's made, or that's not made properly, maybe it's under the paintwork, I don't know. I doubt it. So, and that includes the whole bottom bracket area as well. It's not painted, really quite nice. Now, when I first got the bike, the second ride I hadn't adjusted the front derailleur right, and the chain came over the top on a fast downhill descent. So I scratched the back of my crank arm there, a few scratches there, and the chain came off, clang, clang, clang. And there's no scratches as well at all on the chainstay except right on the very end. There's two very small chips when that happened. So the paintwork's pretty tough. The fork's really nice, up to date with the latest. No fork crown, not like the old days where you had a definite crown and then the fork blade. Nowadays they're all one piece, so really, really nice. The gap between the top of the fork crown here and the frame, you can only just see a slither of light at the right angle, so it's really nice and close and consistent with aerodynamics. The decal work here is done nicely so that when you're going in a straight line, that line lines up nicely, as you can see just there. So they're done really well there as well. Over to the bottom bracket, and it's threaded, standard 37 by 24 threads per inch. Great, because no more creaking issues, not like press fit bottom brackets which are notorious for creaking, so that's great. Now the seat posts, They come really, really long. I've had to cut mine and it still comes down to there, so plenty of seat post length. Now, I love this clamp system. It's a dual system. You can move this clamp on the seat post forward and back, and you can also, of course, move like normal your seat rails on the other clamp as well. So you've got two movements there, and you can come way forward, directly over your bottom bracket axle almost. And so that's great for triathlons and time trialing. And you can also go way back if you want to have an extra long reach. So it just goes to show you. So I love that arrangement because it suits absolutely everybody. The other thing is it's really, really strong. I thought with this clamp system, dual clamp, that you might have some movement, but it's really, really strong. So no problem there. One thing that didn't come with the frame that would have been nice is a chainstay protector, like a little clear sheeting. I've had to buy that extra, and the same at the front where the cable just hits the frame, just in case it hits the frame, a little dot of that clear sheeting. So that would have been nice if it came with the frame, but it didn't. I had to buy that extra, but anyway, no problem, did that and done, and it's fine. The brake caliper mounts on this frame are really nicely done. Of course, the back one is reinforced with the two stays there. The front one is where they've had to reinforce the forks on all road bikes now because of the disc brakes. Now, where the caliper is on that left-hand fork blade, as you apply your brake, the rotor's going this way and it's going to push the caliper forward. So you're getting that forward movement above where the axle is, pushing forward on the blade, and also at the axle it's like a pulling back effect, so you get that twisting, as well as it's on one side on your left hand blade, so it's going to be that sort of movement as well. So anyhow, we don't need to worry about that, the manufacturers do, but I can assure you I've been on some really, really steep, long and rough downhills, and it's been tested, there's no problem. The only thing is, and you'll probably find this with disc brake road bikes, is your headset will come loose in the first couple of rides, maybe the first 5 rides, within the first 5 rides. Only a beeswax, and you'll just need to nip it up and it'll be fine. Now that's inherent with the disc brakes on road bikes now. And I experienced that on about the 4th or 5th ride. So just keep that in mind. If your headset does come a little bit loose from brand new, you just need to nip it up a little bit more and it'll be fine from then on. The dropouts, the rear one here, nice and bulky and strong. And if you bump your rear derailleur, it's replaceable. The hanger's replaceable. Those two Allen key heads there, undo them and the hanger comes out. And even better by design is that hanger comes behind the frame and actually reinforces that rear dropout. So that's a nice design move there. With the front dropouts, again, nice and bulky and strong. The only thing is that I found missing was there's no guide for the axle to slide in. So when you put your front wheel in, it takes a little bit of fiddling around to get it into the dropout, and once it's in, it falls into place fine. But it just would have been nice to see some sort of guides in both of the dropouts, so you can put your wheel in just that little bit quicker. With the front and rear through axles, if you're going to have it so that you can take your handle off like I have here, the back one tucks in really, really nicely. You can't see it if you're looking from the front, so that's nicely tucked away. But the front one just sticks out a fraction because of that little silver washer, as you can see. But nevertheless, it's definitely looking a lot cleaner lines than if there were handles on there. Now, as well as your rear derailleur hanger being replaceable, the front derailleur mount, or in the old days we used to call them braze-ons, of course, these days they glue and rivet them to the frames, don't they? But have a look at this one. Yep, there's 2 Allen key screws there. So this front derailleur mount is bolted onto the frame and is removable. Now that is a great idea, because if you happen to damage your front derailleur in a twist in an accident and it's twisted that hanger there, that little mount, you can replace it. As well as being able to be replaceable, if you decide to go a one-by, say a single chainring at the front, and you don't need the front derailleur, well, you don't need this little mount, do you? You can actually take it off. Well, that's more aerodynamic. Now, I think that's a great idea. Double bonus points for the manufacturer of this frame there. Now, this frame is both mechanical and electronic compatible, so if you want to go with electronic gears on it, then you can certainly do that. Now, we're coming to the end of our winter here in Australia. I've ridden it through the whole of winter this year, and there's no water infiltration anywhere. Usually you get some water seeping down through the seat post area or headset area on a lot of bikes, but it hasn't happened at all on this bike, so that's a really, really good thing. Now, the other thing is, through winter time, you notice that a lot of the nuts and bolts, some of them get a little bit of rust on them. Well, there's not a spot of rust on these. That's because they're stainless steel. Nice move by the manufacturer again, putting all stainless steel bolts through them. Now if you want to go through and replace them with titanium to lighten it up a bit, well, that's up to you. Now the last thing I want to mention is you might say, oh, look at this funny shape, it's not really consistent with a road bike, it's more like a triathlon bike or something like that. It's a bit strange. Well, have a look at the new 3T Strata Aero disc bike, and they definitely know what they're doing, those people. Yep, it's almost a dead ringer of this design. So, and if you do have a look at some of the reviews of that 3T Strata, the number one feature that comes up all the time is it's comfortable, and that's what I've been saying to you. This bike is the same, so maybe it's because of this arrangement here, this S-bend here. I'm not sure, I'm no expert on that, but I can tell you what is, it looks almost a dead ringer for the 3T Strata Aero disc bike. Now let's compare this Yoeleo R6 to other Aero disc road bikes on the market at the moment. This list is as accurate as I could get at the time of making this video. The more expensive bikes will have the higher end group sets, parts and wheel sets, so naturally will be lighter than the cheaper bikes on the market. Also, sizes are not always quoted with weights. Often brands use smaller bike sizes in advertising their weight. This can be deceiving. As the bikes come down in price, I've tried to keep them as comparable as possible by just quoting those that come with Shimano Ultegra, preferably the mechanical gear set, which the Yoeleo bike comes with. And the $4,000 mark seems to be the bottom line for using Ultegra components. So while the other bikes have alloy rims and begin substituting components, Yoeleo has the full Ultegra group set and has full carbon deep dish rims. So this bike with Shimano 105 group set is $3,000. With the Ultegra it's $3,450. And of course if you want to go Di2 or whatever you want, then just consult with Yoeleo and they'll make the changes from there. Still raining. What a day to test a bike. Miserable weather. Hoping